Fascism always is an attempt by the right to resolve a crisis of its own era, right? So in the 1930s, they were attempting to resolve, in Germany, the humiliations of the First World War, the impacts of the Great Depression, and to propose a unity in the face of that, for the in-group. But our moment is different. And one of the things that makes it different, if you think about fascism in the 1930s, this is before the atomic bomb. It's before they understood climate change. And we are in a moment where our elites, whether they admit it or not, do understand that our economic model is at war with life on Earth, right? What unites this kind of strange Frankenstein coalition that Trump represents, where he's bringing together these, the richest people in the world who have ever existed with, many working class people. So what binds the vision? They all have given up on this world. Like they all have bought into a kind of apocalyptic fever. I've been in a lot of progressive spaces in recent months where we've talked about building these very broad coalitions. I've never encountered a potential coalition more broad than the idea of how about if we believe in this world? How about if we believe in the future? Because we're up against people who are actively betting against the future. Fascism always is an attempt by the right to resolve a crisis of its own era, right? So in the 1930s,
5 Black women whose voices have inspired me this year. Number 1, filmmaker Ava DuVernay.
At a time when truth itself is under revision and fear feels like an animating force.
Ava DuVernay reminds us that
history's not a weapon to be sheathed when inconvenient. It's not a bedtime story meant to lull us to sleep.
Number 2, former Vice President Kamala Harris.
We all know President Trump and his administration and their allies are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious. But what they're overlooking, what they have overlooked, is that fear is not the only thing that's contagious. Courage is contagious.
Everything she warned you about last year has happened. Maybe we should listen this time. Number 3, Missouri House member Rachel Prouty.
The same 84-year-old who had to work and get paid under the table. Those are the people I have in my district. I don't have the people who sit up and concern themselves with what boat they get to buy this year and what vacation they get to go on this year. They make bologna sandwiches and fold the bread in half so that they can feed their grandkids when they come from school because they can't afford child care.
Number 4, U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett.
I am tired of the white tears. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education.
And number 5, New York State Attorney General Letitia James.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together.
At a time when people in positions of power in Congress, at the nation's biggest law firms, at the nation's richest colleges, in the editorial rooms of powerful media giants, and in the executive suites of Fortune 500 companies are caving to racism, dictatorship, and corruption, Black women, the 92%, are not sitting on the sidelines. They are leading the charge. These 5 Black women, like so many others, are communicating powerful messages for our times. First, speak up.
You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harrises. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. But I got news for them. I don't care what they do. We will fight to the end to make sure that we get our due.
Second, protect our history.
We will not comply with forgetting. We will not make myths in place of memory. We will not trade the truth for contortions and comfort. Instead, we will gather, we will remember, we will teach, we will share, we will tell it all.
And third, do not give up.
We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known, your Black Press USA's morning show. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love and Merry Monday, everybody. I'm your co-host, Niele, and we have a lot of headlines to dig into. And that was a good way to start the morning, empowering us 92% of Black women. We are on the front line, but we're also do-si-doing too.
Well, and the first video there, I was saying this all weekend long. It's crisis. This is not a drill. We are in crisis. This is crisis, and what we are seeing is nothing short of somebody who is strong arming this country, strong arming the Congress, the courts, ignoring the courts. Mm-hmm. This is full blown crisis, and the thing about it is, we get on. We have gotten on Democrats for being weak and things of that nature, but this is not this is not just on the Democrats. Man up, woman up to those Republicans in the House as well. It's on everybody. You cannot tell me that every single Republican in Congress is on board with all of this.
Well,
you can't tell me.
Actions speak louder than words. Pay attention to what people do instead of what they say. And what they're showing us is that even if they don't like it, they're going to go along with the Trump agenda.
Yeah, the fear of man. And instead of fear of their, that's the thing. Instead of being fearful of their constituents, those who put them where they are, they are more in fear of Mr. MAGA. It's crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
So we call, and I've certainly been one of them who called Democrats as a whole, not all of them, but in general, sometimes they've shown themselves to be spineless and gutless. Well, that goes double or more for those Republicans in Congress too.
Yeah. There's a lot of headlines that are leading to that conclusion, Stacy, and we have a ton of them to get through.
Well, first and foremost, yeah. So over the weekend, I'm pretty sure by now everyone saw what happened in New Jersey. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson also hinted over the weekend that the Trump administration may pursue arrest of those House Democrats who visited the ICE facility there in Jersey, accusing them of assaulting ICE officers. And the video, there is not one video that shows that Bonnie Watson Coleman, Rob Menendez, LaMonica McIver, or Mayor Ras Baraka assaulted anyone. And yet here we are.
Right. I think this even speaks to Tamika Mallory went live on Friday to talk about the situation, and you heard the frustration in her voice, because it's not just about Ras Baraka, it's about them coming after people who speak against the Trump agenda. And that's the scary part when we have these soldiers on the front line, like Until Freedom, what they're doing at State of the People. You have like organizations like Black Lives Matter. We know the anniversary of George Floyd is coming up. All of these individuals, have anxiety because the way that the Trump Klan agenda is acting, as if there is no protection for organizers, for protesters, for people who go against Donald Trump, and he's going to come after us, if he doesn't like what we say. And that goes for press too, for people who speak. You could lose your job. Yeah. So it's a really scary time to be in resistance, but it's also a good time to know that there are power in numbers. And so that footage right there, just to see him be arrested, it was just something about that just was like, ugh. Like, this felt like, okay, we're back in the 50s and 60s for real.
Well, David Youngblood said, what did he say, 1939 or 1933 or something that nature, 1933, he said, and as Mike V says, it appears that the Constitution has been suspended, a complete constitutional crisis. And that's where we at. That is where we are. To go along with that, the Trump administration also, this is the thing, they're asking that the Supreme Court end a humanitarian parole program. And this program allowed over 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua and Venezuela to enter the U.S. legally under the Biden era policy. It was created in 2022. The program offered 2-year work parole to those with U.S. sponsors. And critics have argued that the move is by Trump. It just shows that their attempts to erase Black and brown from a nation that's built on the backs of enslaved Africans and immigrants. It just shows you that they really want to wipe out history.
It's very sickening, and it's just like, how do you navigate through a time like this, especially when you feel like, okay, there's some sense of normalcy in, living under this type of agenda. And then he does something else to show you, like, it's getting closer and closer. It's almost in our backyards. For some, it's already in their house. For some of us, it's getting closer and closer. And it's just like, what do we do? What are the answers? Where do we turn to? We're hoping for Congress, our Democratic leaders, to figure out something. We're hoping I'm really looking at the Democratic Party. Okay, let's put Congress aside. What is the Democratic Party doing to mobilize communities across this country? What are the talking points? Because all we have been talking about since the start of this show is what Donald Trump is doing, what the Republicans are doing, what the Heritage Foundation is doing. What is the Democratic Party doing right now? And where are your talking points? And what are we supposed to do? What's on your website? What are you telling the people to do? Because we need some answers. We need some hope. And like Keith Boykin, he just pointed to 5 Black women. Once again, looking to us to solve the problems.
Well, and to go along with that, as a couple of folks have brought out, that he's also has said he's going to allow, and he is bringing white South Africans over, but yet the Venezuelans, the Cubans, and others he's kicking out, even those who are here legally. He's kicking out, and these folks, again, we continue to see these videos of these folks who supported him, proudly wore the MAGA gear, and now crying because they or their family members are being kicked out.
Yeah, I think 2 things are happening with that African thing. I think he's gaslighting Black folks, right? And then I think it has something to do with Elon Musk.
It has everything to do with Elon Musk.
Yeah. And it's gaslighting us to be like, okay, you're gonna let them come over there, but then you want to kick us all out. And it's just, I really hope the saying is true. God don't like ugly, and I hope to see him not like ugly in my lifetime. Because a lot of our ancestors didn't get to see him not like ugly in their lifetime. They just had to be with ugly. And so I just want to see it in my lifetime. I want to see him not like ugly, especially when it comes to the Trump plan.
Yeah, and it's just so cruel. As somebody points out, ICE, Inferno 932 says ICE has become domestic terrorists and local police are volunteering to help them. You see the cruelty in which they're carrying this out. There was a situation in Massachusetts, I think Boston, where they slammed a little child face down to the ground, and they had a community trying to step up and stop them, and it became a mini riot there because of their actions. And you got school teachers who already have their hands full trying to ward off ICE at their schools, and it is the cruelty is just unmatched by any. You have to go back a couple of 100 years to find the cruelty. Even this is some Governor Wallace, Alabama stuff on steroids. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
And then here's the other thing too. So here's the thing. With all the chaos, we also see this, and it's easy to miss, that Trump did indeed, and we haven't talked about this. He took away quietly the living wage from thousands of private sector employees on federal contracts. He reduced their minimum wage. I mean, he reduced their wages, right? 17.75 per hour down to $12 per hour. Now, if you recall, the prior administration said that they wanted to boost, and they did. He passed Biden passed a bill, got a bill passed to increase the minimum wage for these particular workers, and this guy has reduced it.
Yeah, like, I mean, has he saw the price of rent, eggs, lettuce, collard greens? Has he saw the price? We can't afford to have nothing cut. Okay, we utility bills. And he's slashing our wages. It's just insane. I don't understand. This is where I don't understand white folks. I just don't. And it does become at some point, it's not like just us, it's white folks that's doing this type of stuff. And it's like it all goes back to, and it constant, and then it's like they want to erase our history so we don't know. And it's like when you think back to like his legacy and where he comes from, it's just like, what a tragedy to elect somebody like this to lead our country, but it's white folks, just white folk, and that's what they doing.
Even for folks who supported him, it should be quite embarrassing. Even Laura Loomer went against him on this whole Saudi Arabia gift. This is absolutely insane. $400 million plane that they're gifting, and he's like the only people. This is what he said about the plane. The only people who will be against him getting this gift are losers. This is what he said. 400 million, and yet, what is his favorite word about Biden and Hillary? Corrupt. This is corruption 101. This is stuff like, when you go to grade school, they say, you put a period at the end of your sentence.
Right.
This is as simple as that. That is corruption in its most obscene thing. You're going to get a $400 million jet. And instead of using Air Force One, he says he's going to use that. But the good news about that, folks, sometimes you want to see the silver lining and stuff. The good news about that is that he said he would use it after he leaves office, which means, at least for that moment, he's not planning on staying that long.
Right. Right.
So
and then
you got to take a little bit of it.
Right. And then you have to take taxpayers' dollars and use it, because they said once the plane comes over here, it has to be go through the Pentagon, and it has to, all of that. Because first thing I thought is, they're going to tap the plane. They're going to know all of our secrets. You know what I'm saying? You taking a gift like that and you think that there's nothing inside that plane.
Right.
So it has to go through the Pentagon, and they have to sift through it. But who's going to pay for that? Us.
Well, you remember, Niele, you brought that up about, bugging the plane, tapping the plane or whatever. The whole documents case was about him allegedly selling U.S. secrets to foreign entities. And so that's why he got in trouble with that. So maybe they don't have to bug the plane. Maybe it's a quid pro quo, So, and we have yet. Okay, I think we have a video though. Here we go.
True that the social security number of just about every single American is available for sale on the dark web?
That is a true statement. All of our personally identifiable information, name, date of birth, former addresses, social security number is available on the darknet and can likely be purchased.
That's chilling.
Yeah, it's very much a way of our lives though right now.
And purchased, I hear, for as little as $2 a piece.
Yep, very affordable.
Is it true that the social security...
This is what he and Elon Musk has. And Dr. Joni, that sums it up. She says, this makes me sick to my stomach. This is what they have done.
Me too.
It's really, it's just sad. And the other thing, and we haven't, it's the thumbnail of our show today, and we haven't talked about it. The whole idea, the habeas corpus decision, or even the thought of removing the suspending the habeas corpus is just it's incredible. But you know that from the fugitive slave law, which was in 1850, to Reconstruction, I should say, to the terror of that, Japanese internment in World War II, the right to habeas corpus has been both a shield and a last resort for marginalized people. And so you know the suspension of it is going to lead to devastating consequences.
Oh, for sure. You know, most of the people that are, or the individuals that are incarcerated right now in our criminal justice system and in our prisons, they file habeas corpus. So this isn't like, this isn't like a federal thing or, you know, something that has to do with foreign policy. This is like, could be your loved one. They might have a habeas corpus filed right now. And so it's not just impacting, you know, large or federal cases or, you know, international cases. This is our cousins, you know, Joe Button in prison and Pookie. It's that's going to impact them the most.
So, and it's not hypothetical, folks. Check this out. In 1780,
Miller, one of the president's
go ahead. Let's roll that.
Advisors threatened to suspend the writ of habeas corpus, one of the most dangerous and vile threats yet coming from the administration. Let me break down what that means. First, take a look at what Miller said.
That the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at.
So there's Miller threatening to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. First of all, what is a writ of habeas corpus? Habeas corpus is Latin for provide the body, show the body. And what that means basically is when someone is in custody, you can bring that person before the court. You have a right to go before court and make the case, I'm not the right person, I shouldn't be incarcerated. You can challenge your unlawful detention. This is a right that is not only enshrined in the Constitution, but goes back to the Magna Carta. For hundreds and hundreds of years, in order to challenge the authority of the king in Britain, you had this right to go before a magistrate. It was considered one of the most important rights enshrined in British law, and it is as well in American law, in our Constitution, and by statute. So there's Miller threatening to suspend it. Now, are you allowed to suspend the writ of habeas corpus? Under what circumstances? This has only happened 4 times in our history, including once during the Civil War. The Constitution has a clause called the suspension clause that allows the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, but only in cases of rebellion or invasion, and even then, only when it's necessary for the public safety. So several problems with what Miller is saying here. First is he and the president don't have the authority to suspend the writ. That authority is given to Congress, not to the president. But second, there is no rebellion, there is no invasion. And in fact, when courts have considered their renderings, their deportations already, the courts have held there is no invasion from Nicaragua or anywhere else to justify invocation of other laws like the Alien Enemies Act. So they've already lost in court on this issue. That clause doesn't apply. That clause is actually meant to protect people and to provide only narrow circumstances in which the writ can be suspended. But what is most threatening about what Miller has to say, besides its utter lawlessness, is the justification, which is, well, we'll have to see what the courts do. That is, they're threatening this lawless action to take away people's right to go before a magistrate. They're threatening that action if the judges continue to rule against them. This is a message directed at the bench. This was not something that Miller spontaneously said. This was premeditated. It is dangerous, and it will not succeed, but it shows you the lengths they'll go to. But let me show you also the lengths they'll go to, the cruelty they're already going to. Take a look at this footage. If that isn't enough to make you sick, I don't know what is. It is hard to believe this is happening in this country. We've got to fight it. We've got to fight it in the courts. We have to make sure that we mobilize all across the country. and make it very clear. This is not who we are.
Well, and he's 100% right. There's only been
I was just saying that was Senator Adam Schiff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only been a couple of times, as he said, a handful of times. And one time it was President Grant. After Congress passed the Ku Klux Klan Act in 1871, that was to protect Black citizens from paramilitary terror. It allowed the president to suspend habeas corpus, not to restrict civil rights, but to crush white supremacist violence. And folks, when you get a chance, look up the case in 1786 of the father and daughter, Cato and Betsy. That tells you how habeas corpus is supposed to protect folks, even Black folks at that point in time who were marginalized as a compliment. They were just existing. And even John Lincoln, right? When he did that, when he suspended habeas corpus in 1862, critics said then that the nation could not preserve itself by abandoning the very liberties it claimed to protect. So this idea of Trump suspending habeas corpus, it only has nefarious purposes.
Right. And you know, I was just thinking about all the things that Adam Schiff was just saying. And it's like, once again, going back to what is the Democratic Party doing? Because all of that historical context to a habeas corpus, but there are so many families who have loved ones that is going to be impacted if they play with that. That's happening right now. And it's like, what is the Democratic Party doing to connect the dots? You know what I'm saying? Like, you could give the historical context of it, but it's really going to impact. And if I know the people in our urban communities knew it from that perspective, or just imagine how what they talking about in the prisons. In the prisons, that's probably a big talking point, because a lot of cases, a lot of inmates file habeas corpus to try to get, out of jail. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to get out of the everybody in prison is innocent. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like Democrats are doing a horrible job at connecting the dots of these things that are happening and how it impacts the everyday person. Because, I mean, we could talk about Lincoln, we could talk about the war, we could talk about how it's never been taken away, but how is it impacting the everyday people? Connect those dots, and I'm pretty sure that you will have more engagement, because we tired of looking at them on, Congress members being reporters. We want to see some work being done. That's what I want to see. I want to see what are we supposed to be doing? We can't hear you, Stacy. It's okay. Oh, well, he's connecting his thing. Another thing that happened that a lot of people are talking about or concerned about is the firing of the Library of Congress, Carla Hayden. I don't think we talked about that on Friday, but that was just another key point that people are really worried about, because as we talk about preserving American history, which is Black history, she was one of the gatekeepers of that. And I don't mean gatekeepers in a way of trying to leave things out, but trying rather to preserve, a gatekeeper to preserve what's happening in the Library of Congress. And so with her being fired before, she only had a year left. That was the interesting part. She had a year left to finish, because they say that this position is a 10-year tenure, because it's so important to the curation and making sure that everything is intact. She had less than a year to go, and they still fired her. And God knows who they're going to put in that position, and God knows what they're going to do to the documents and the historical artifacts that are held in the Library of Congress. Stacy, we can't hear you. It's okay.
And why they fired her, the response that they gave me out was absurd. It didn't even make sense. They were saying things like, oh, because she was putting books in the libraries that were inappropriate. And they don't even understand. Part of this is that they don't understand what that job does, like what she did, what the Library of Congress does. That was the thing that was crazy to me. And you know, we have people in place who do not understand how our government functions.
Yeah, that's the problem. And then we do have people in place that understand and they want to tear it up. And
Absolutely.
it's like
Absolutely.
the same words that we have reimagined, they have it too. We want to reimagine public safety. We want to reimagine a better nation, and they want to reimagine and take us back to the good old days, to the GOP, the good old party, so to
Right.
say. But another story, we could talk about Trump all week, and we are. But another story that everybody's looking at, Greer, is all eyes are on New York today. Opening statements are to start, hopefully, for the Diddy trial. And so they have an escort. I think witness 1 is an escort. Witness 2, and then they said witness 3 will be Cassie, and she will enter probably midweek with her testimony. And they said that they want to give her, after 90 minutes, she's in her 3rd trimester, so she's going to have a lot of breaks. But I think that is the testimony that everybody is looking to see, is that Cassie testimony. Because I think everything else is going to fall short, and it's just going to prove that Diddy was a freak. No, can't hear you now. And in more Diddy news, Al B. Sure is hitting the airwaves. He is saying that he has a book coming out. Do You Believe Me Now? I think that's the name of the title of the book. It's a memoir about, Diddy. I find it interesting, though. I really hope, Stacy, you can get your microphone back on, because I want to hear your take on this. I find it interesting that the book doesn't come out till September, but he's already going on the circuits, all the news circuits, talking about the book right in the middle of the start of Diddy's trial. Greer, if you're there, I would love to get your take on your thoughts on Diddy deciding, Al B. Sure deciding to speak now.
He has. I think that it's a couple of things. I don't believe that, first of all, that Al B. Sure has not benefited all this time. That I know that his ego was probably hurt. Diddy became the bigger celebrity here, but I'm not sure that, if you want to know the truth, that I really care about what Al B. Sure has to say around this, this situation with Diddy, because, he looks a little, not in terms of the things that Diddy did, but I just don't know how relevant, he is. And I think he's trying to make himself relevant in this moment.
Yeah, I feel like he's trying to inject himself into the conversation.
Right. And I don't believe, I believe that he loved Kim, he had a child with her. I'm gonna, I'll believe that, but I do not believe that it's, I think he's trying to take advantage of this moment. Right.
Sure.
That's me, I'm saying that, but maybe he, like a lot of other people who was a part of her circle, cared about her, thinks this is an opportunity to, to do something, to bring forward to the conversation the suspicion around her death.
Right.
Maybe that's it. He is the mother of her first child, so it's not. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but in terms of this thing that's happening right now, he's absolutely taking advantage of the moment.
Yeah, he's injecting himself into the conversation, and I just wonder how Quincy feels about this.
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of bitterness there as well, because he probably feels like he doesn't have a relationship with his son because of Diddy. But just to come out like right before opening statements, I mean, it just seems like, come on, bro. The book is coming out in September. You could have did your press tour. You know, you could
Right.
have at least gave it to August. But
Right.
it just shows you that he's very scorned. He's very and he has an axe to grind with Diddy.
Yeah, for
Just
sure. But you know, but what I think is absurd is that he you know, as far as his relationship with his child, I mean, listen, bruh, nobody stopped you. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I listen, I don't know what's happening in their household. I know he was a major star at one time, at least you know, on the East Coast, you know, um
Yeah, I turned the lights off.
right. And then he just wasn't, right?
Mhm.
And you know, that was probably a very difficult thing for him. But you know, and then here comes Diddy, who rises all the way to the top, right? And probably to some extent, I don't know, you know, I don't remember exactly at this time. Maybe he did a little gatekeeping, you know what I'm saying? So out, you know what I mean? I have no idea. But I do, as far as this, you know, part is concerned, I just think I see him inserting himself like in this,
Right.
like
I can't wait for the person to do the Uptown Records movie. Because that was, you know, the evolution of Uptown Swing. What was it? New Jack Swing. I mean, that was Teddy Riley. That was
Kelly
Keith
Riley, yeah.
Sweat. That was Keith Sweat. You know, that was Jodeci. That was Mary J. Blige. That was Jeff Redd. So many people like Andre Harrell. Like, I mean, Kim Porter was the receptionist. Okay. There are so many stories.
and
so
remember,
many.
it was some conspiracy about the heavyweight lover's death.
Oh, Heavy D. Yeah, Heavy
Heavy
D.
D.
Yeah.
There was
I
some
mean,
conspiracy
who's gonna
around
like
that.
that?
He was
I-
they was all mixed up in that.
I agree with everything you said, Greer, about I'll Be Sure. I think he's injecting himself into this. Also, the other thing too, you mentioned Kim. You know, I used to hear the stories about her being physically assaulted by Diddy, and in one case, on pretty good authority, I got to see that he did in fact abuse her physically. But I think that this case comes down to if the jury is going to be stirred into anger when they show the Cassie video again. Now, I know Diddy's attorneys plan to say that they it was a abusive relationship both ways. She would hit him, he would hit her. It was nothing new under the sun. But whether or not that flies, I just don't know. They also having a problem with one of their so-called star witnesses who apparently is refusing to show up, and that's going to be they can't find her, right? And that might be a problem. But here's the other question that I have, or other issue I have with this. Diddy's charged with racketeering. Now, R. Kelly was charged with racketeering, and it was someone else also. I'm trying to think who it was that was charged with racketeering in a case where it's only one defendant. How are you being charged with racketeering and it's only one defendant? See, these are the kind of little slick things that prosecutors try to pull off particularly when it comes to Black folk. And so racketeering, you must have at least two conspirators. It's RICO. It's interacting with someone else to plan and commit a crime that more than one person is generally charged. Now, the other side of that is that perhaps they have unindicted co-conspirators in which these unindicted folks have agreed to testify for the prosecution, and so they're holding those other people who might have been involved in this racketeering. They're holding them in abeyance. They're holding charges in abeyance until and unless they are satisfied with their testimony against Diddy. So it could be that as well, but it's still highly unusual to have a racketeering case with one defendant.
Well, I mean, they say that a couple of things that you said. You talked about Diddy, allegedly abusing Kim. Well, it's also allegedly said that Cassie used to laugh. When it was her, when it was Kim, it was okay, it was a joke. But then when it became her, then now you want to play victim. Second thing is, they say Cassie, she's saying that he used to force her to allegedly force her to go to the escort services. So maybe, that's the second person, her, and of course 50 Cent's ex-girlfriend or baby mama, however you want to put it, they used to go to the male escort sites and hire the individuals. So wouldn't that be considered a co-conspirator, sir, if they're the ones that are actually hiring the escort and paying that person to fly to New York or wherever they were having their freak offs at? So, I mean, there you have it.
Could now take into account, I guess we should take into account that we're talking about allegedly abused women here, right? Cassie and others, right? Could they have extricated themselves from that situation and not have aided and abetted in any way that's happening? That's a question I'm sure is going to come up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many answers that everybody is looking to hear, and you have so many different outlets that are looking for a seat in that courtroom to be the first to give us the tea as to what's happening with that case. But all eyes are going to be on New York today for sure.
Yeah, they're going to finish jury selection. They at least they hope to finish jury selection today. And if they do finish in a timely manner, they hope to have opening statements today. And quite possibly, it's very slim window that you'll have Cassie testifying today. But as I think one of you pointed out,
they said she's third, so they're hoping that she's going to testify by the middle of the week.
By the middle of the week. Okay, so she's not the first witness. But like you guys had said earlier, they got to be concerned about her pregnancy. Where she's at in her pregnancy.
Yeah, they say they're going to have to take a lot of breaks because she's in her third trimester, and so they're going to have to be gentle. And of course, this isn't in Diddy's favor either, because you don't want to upset a pregnant woman. That's not going to with the jury.
Right, but generally it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, let's be real here. It depends on the makeup of the jury too, because since when does folks care about Black women, particularly pregnant Black women? I hate to say it like that, because it's just a shame.
Black? Is she Black?
Uh-oh.
No, I'm asking. I'm not.
That's a good question. You know what? I made an assumption, babe. That's true.
Greer says yes, she's Black.
Okay, she's okay.
She's Black
because she does have a Latino type last name, right?
Biracial, she said.
Biracial. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Nicole said that's a question for many abused women, and if anything, we should already know how difficult it is to leave an abusive relationship. If nowhere else we saw that, and what's love got to do with it? Wow, yeah. Who's Cassie's pregnant by? Is it Diddy? No, Patricia. She's married. Cassie's been married for a few years now.
Yeah, they're their third child. This is their third child with it's interesting though, that is a really interesting relationship though, because Cassie did run off with the help. So Cassie was sleeping with, let's just tell the story the way it is.
You tell it, because I don't know that part. Go ahead. I know he was the help.
He was the help. He was their trainer. He was Diddy and Cassie's trainer. He was the trainer. Okay. And those two fell in love while she was with Diddy, and she ran off with him. Still, she could still be a victim too. Two things.
Two things could be.
She could be right. But so I'm just saying, this relationship wasn't just cookie cutter. Okay, there was a lot going on. He was around. And she was with the help.
That's gonna play. So that's gonna play a large role in this trial. I guarantee you, because his attorneys have already said, listen, the guy is freaky. He admits it, but he's not a criminal. And the folks involved are all freaky, is what they said. His attorney saying, including Cassie, whatever. So I think all of that is going to play a big part. It's going to be so salacious. You know what? It's going to be hard to to write and report about it in a family newspaper, in a family atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of stuff. Wow.
Yeah, but all of these things are going to come out. You know what I'm saying? The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all coming out now. And just put it all out. All the only thing Puff can do is put it all out on the table. Just put it all out.
So,
and let's see where the cards lay.
The big question, Niele, and Dr. Nicole says calling him to help is but the big question,
he was the help. He was the trainer. He was the trainer. He kind of.
But listen, I feel you on that, and it is as facts. He was the help in that regard. But I think the narrative that Cassie and the husband has presented, this makes this like this kind of like this rescue story, because he was around, when she was getting slapped up, and Puff made sure that she stayed in shape because he wanted her to look a certain way. Okay, he wanted her to.
But you don't think that she didn't want to look a certain way too?
Of course she did. But listen, we cannot forget the power dynamic. I mean, you know what I mean? When they got together, you know what I'm saying? So listen, doesn't mean that, she wasn't ambitious and all of the things, but Puff took advantage and kind of pretty much set the tone early on for how their relationship was going to be. And she was extremely young. Right. So I don't know. I listen, I'm not saying that it is, how they're doing Puff, the way that this whole thing is going about, there's clearly, there's injustice, there's a lot of hypocrisy and all of the things. But we're centering this entire argument, and I think the media is doing it, the culture is doing it around Cassie. These are racketeering charges, right? And like you're saying, Stacy, using her is a trick to try to get people more focused on the power dynamics, the beating, and all of the things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because in the indictment, again, I always encourage folks to read the indictment for themselves. Don't let the media tell you what the indictment says, because in the indictment, the only time she's mentioned in the indictment is about with the video and her being beaten. And the problem with that is that has nothing to do with the charges that he's facing.
Right. Exactly. There's nothing to do with the charges. But the beating,
but the sex trafficking does have something to do with her, because she was a part of that.
Hired that. Right. But you're right. But the prosecutors are not alleging that in the indictment. That's what I'm saying. That's why this case has a lot of problems, and this is why it's so important to have good representation, because it's not spelled out in the indictment. They want you to believe, Niele, that she's totally a victim, this good girl who got caught up with this angry black man. And
I don't believe that.
No, the prosecutor, right? The prosecutor wants you to believe that, though. Mm-hmm. You don't believe it, and Puffy's hoping that those jurors don't believe it either.
I mean, I think that she was a victim. I'm not saying that she wasn't a victim. I'm just saying that I remember she had left. She had left before Kim died. When Kim Porter died, she came back. And to me, it was to me, just on the outside looking in, and this is all speculation, but it was like at that point, she realized that he never was going to choose her, because the way he fell out over Kim, it was like she wasn't even there. She wasn't. True. She ran back.
But it goes to Gria's point that this is like almost like a trick that they're using. Right.
Yeah. Because she was free. She had left him. She was gone.
She sure gone. Did. She got out of there. She was. I got it. They spooked up.
She came back when Kim died. There were pictures. She came back to console that man. So I'm just saying that their relationship was not just like the way they're portraying it to be. And I think we're going to find out a lot of that in the trial too, because it's going to come out. She was not a victim. And don't be surprised if that her whole relationship with her husband now is a part of the testimony, because she was sleeping with he was sleeping with he was having the freak offs, and she was being comforted by her lover. It was, that's a movie within itself.
It's all, like you said, it's all going to come out. And they're not going to leave, the defense, that is not going to leave no stone unturned. And this is not, Diddy's at a point, and you could tell even in how he's come to court last week, and even addressing the judge, telling the judge he's nervous, but you could tell that everything is on the table. His life is on the line. So everything, you can't say, well, I don't want them to know this. You got to bring it all out. And I think the key, and I was going to say this earlier, the key is will he take the stand? Should he take the stand? And if he does take the stand, wow, what a frenzy day that will be.
Man. Okay, well, we're going to keep you updated about this. We won't do it. Well, shoot, we talk about Trump every day. Let's talk about Diddy too. Okay, but
no Diddy, no doubt.
Okay, I got a couple of quickies. So the USDA indulge is demanding states. Now they're coming to the states to hand over food stamp recipients' personal data, including citizenship and social security details. That's what I'm saying. It's getting closer and closer to us, because now it's impacting our states. And then once it impacts our states, it's coming to our cities. Okay. And so this is just another, you talked about earlier, our data. They were selling our data or something. You were talking about our data earlier, Stacy. This is just another scenario of why. This has to do, of course, with Homeland Security and ICE and things like that. But we also don't know. Elon Musk has been very quiet lately. He's been very quiet. So he's changed how he's moving in that White House too. But sometimes when they get quiet, what did Dr. Amos Brown tell us when he was here? When it gets quiet, that's when you need to worry.
And there you have it.
There you have it. And in more news, we're talking about state. Let's go to the city of Los Angeles, where Mayor Karen Bass will take a pay cut as the city prepares for spending reductions and layoffs to address a nearly $1 billion shortfall in the Los Angeles budget for 2025 and 2026. Mayor Bass is catching a lot of heat out here in Los Angeles. And it's, people are wondering, like, will she be able to be reelected? Should Black LA be looking for a new candidate? All those questions rise, but more than likely Black folks are going to double down for Karen Bass, but it is not looking good for Mayor Bass out here in LA. It is just like, she's being heckled too. When she goes to different events, people are popping up. They are demanding answers, from the fires to the city budget to the homeless crisis. They want to know where the money is. So she's really having a really tough time out here in LA. But she's holding her head up. She's popping up at all events. She's sticking to her schedule. And she's up for the fight.
Well, I thought she would be in a better spot, getting away from that disintegrating Congress that she served on, and go back home and serve that city. But boy, oh boy, it seems like she went from the pot to the frying pan, or how you say it, from the fire to the fire pan, or whatever. Gosh.
Yeah, and she was doing so good with and she was very focused. How somebody picks, what do I want my legacy to be? Barack Obama had Obamacare and a couple other things, but she really wanted her legacy to be to like curb the homeless crisis, or for LA to be a model for the nation, when addressing the unhoused population. And 2 fires and little fires everywhere all across LA.
Fires are going to happen in LA, as you well know, Niele. It's to blame the mayor is just absolute. To blame anybody who didn't set the fire is absolutely insane. I mean, you can blame for response time. You can start, you can pick on that or whatever, but still, come on, that it's like blaming her for an earthquake. It's going to happen.
No, I think that it was how it was handled. I do think that, it's always good to have a good communications department and have somebody, to get ahead of the story. And I think what happened is she got behind the story and it kind of swallowed her up. And
Yeah.
she didn't, she wasn't on in front of it, ahead of it. And it took her too long to kind of find her grounding. And then firing the white woman, ain't nothing good about making a white woman a Karen, She fired.
She was a DE&I hire.
She fired the fire chief, and so she has all of the. It's just like, come on, So we're praying for our mayor, and we're hoping the best for her, and we'll definitely keep you updated with that story. And last but not least, we'll end on a good note. The BET nominations are in, and Kendrick Lamar, of course, leads with 10 nominations, followed by Drake, Glorilla, Future, and Doechii with 6 nominations. And they are all going to be a part of, I don't know if they're going to be in the house, but their names and their swag will all be a part of the 25th anniversary of the BET Awards, which will be held on June 9th here in Los Angeles, hosted by Kevin Hart, which means the BET experience will be here in LA. And so that's where they have tons of panels, parties, concerts, and it's a celebration of Black excellence. So if you're looking for something to do, come to LA the first week. And
he's packing out. Kendrick Lamar's packing out stadiums now too. I mean, he was in Philly and Jersey, and was it SZA? They took over a mall in Jersey over the weekend, and just it was just amazing that all those folks, you saw all types of folks in the in the audience out there. Amazing stuff. This guy, his popularity is through the roof, right. And yet Rick Ross is saying that Rick is now trying to squash his beef with Drake. Well, Kendrick is like, let the courts decide.
Yeah, I mean,
the court of public opinion has already decided. Now let the court of law decide.
Everybody's saying that he's such a West Coast, and the music doesn't transcend past, the West Coast, and he's all across the country, and people are reciting his lyrics word for word. And since we're talking about concerts, I did have a chance to go check out the Cowboy Carter tour on Friday. And what I left with was the same type of feeling we left with when we saw Kendrick's Super Bowl halftime performance. That concert is a statement about what it means to be Black in America. I mean, if you haven't saw the concert, she just finished LA, so she's headed to Chicago now. But that concert has so many metaphors and isms in it. And it's just all about, this flag is not just for y'all white folks. It's my flag too. And I'm not running from America. I'm double downing because my ancestors paid the price. And she gets hats off. She had Black history lessons in there. If you didn't know, Beyonce, if you think that she's an elitist or whatever, no, that girl is country Black. Okay.
She's from Houston. What do you expect?
Those are your quickies for today.
All right, so we got to revoke somebody's Black card today, and that is none other than Brandon Tatum, who contributes to Turning Point USA. Well, this Negroid has gotten louder in his anti-Blackness and his love of Donald Trump. He appeared on, of course, another anti-Black folk show, Stephen A. Smith, and among other shows. And he's continued his brainless commentary, including saying, quote, if Joe Biden wanted to close the border, he could have closed the border. Trump accomplished this immediately as soon as he entered office. It's just such an asinine take. In attacking, he also attacked D.L. Hughley, who has voiced his disgust with folks like Saquon Barkley and others hanging with Trump. He said, quote, D.L. Hughley won't sit down with Trump or admit anything positive he's done because the woke mob would eat him alive. This guy is shameless in his anti-Blackness, hopeless in his anti-Blackness. And of course, he can't come to any barbecues, any picnics. He can't even come to the front yard. Revoked.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. All right. Some Black history moments. On this date in 1958, summit meeting of national Negro leaders called for stepped up campaign against discrimination and desegregation. President Eisenhower was sharply criticized for a speech which, in effect, urged the leaders to be patient in seeking full citizenship rights. Isn't that ironic?
Nothing new under the sun, right?
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new. And on this date in 2015, Harriet Tubman won an unofficial poll to replace Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. I'm still waiting for my $20 bill. But the Treasury later confirmed the redesign, placing Tubman on the front of the Jackson bill, but pushed it back past 2020. And then we know that Trump said, no, we're not doing it. And in 2025, efforts were revived with the Harriet Tubman Tribute Act, proposing all bills printed after December 31st, 2030, featuring Tubman. So, I mean, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We will see. But I know you mentioned that recently, that you were still waiting for your Harriet Tubman. So
yes.
And one of the compromise, a T-shirt?
I'll do a T-shirt.
Okay, because one of the compromises they offered, I noticed too when I looked back on it, and I tried to put it in the chat, and I didn't, was that to have her on the front and still maintain Andrew Jackson on the back. So
no. Get him off of it, period.
Get him,
okay.
Period, right?
In a minute, though, all of our bills are going to have Donald Trump on it.
Without question. Without
In a minute, or everything, quarters, he just not going to do the penny because it's brown.
All righty then. Our Black-owned newspaper of the day is none other than the Weekly Challenger. For more than 50 years, the Weekly Challenger newspaper has been the most comprehensive source for gathering, organizing, and presenting news and information to the African American communities of Tampa Bay. In addition to in-depth research and thorough reporting of local events, the Weekly Challenger newspaper also offers complete coverage of news from the state, national, and international scene. The Weekly Challenger is our Black-owned newspaper of the day. Check them out on their website. And if you're in the area, pick up the physical copy of the paper.
Yes, and we know you have tons of choices to go to in the mornings. We thank you for choosing Let It Be Known. And for the latest in Black news, you can head over to BlackPressUSA.com.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.